Destiny has been a huge part of my life for the past 7 years. I originally got Destiny 1 on the day it released, along with a Glacier White PS4 from GameStop. So basically, I'm the guy from the Taco Bell ad.
Only he can save us. To battle!
Hold on. Sensitive trigger.
Limited edition PS4 Destiny bundle.
Since that first day, times have not always been great. I haven't played Destiny non-stop, sometimes left the game weeks or months at a time. But I always come back to it because no other game is able to scratch that itch that Destiny gets. I've played all the other copycats that tried to do it, but for me and many others, none of them could actually live up to Destiny's legacy. Warframe was a great game for what it was, and The Division, well, number 2 was good. The Avengers and Godfall were okay, and Anthem, we don't talk about Anthem. They all copied Destiny in superficial ways, but none of them really got to the core of why people really enjoy playing the game. So why do people enjoy Destiny so much? Why have people spent the last 7 years of their lives devoted to this one game? So for the rest of this video, and for a few videos after, I'm going to be talking about why you should be playing Destiny. So to answer that, I think we need to take a look back to the launch of Destiny 1. And then follow it up with the evolution of that game to Destiny 2, and so on and so forth. Because if the game hadn't evolved, I wouldn't be talking here on this video to you right now. The game that would become Destiny started back in 2010 under codename Project Tiger, which was announced around the same time that Bungie announced their deal for a 10-year plan with Activision. There is even a little Easter egg teasing Destiny in Bungie's penultimate Halo game, Halo 3 ODST, in which we see a picture of Earth and a conspicuous white ball hovering over it, with the caption, "Destiny awaits." Let's skip ahead a bit. Finally, after 4 years of waiting and teasing, in September of 2014, Destiny 1 was released. After years of development and years of hype, the game to end all games was finally here.
I can say hello in any language.
Wait, what? The game wasn't very good at first. Yes, as many Destiny fangirls and boys will know, the development of the game was, how you say, shit. Okay, skip back now. Yes, I'm aware that my writing style is akin to a coke-addled raccoon with ADHD, sue me. Bungie has mostly completed the game by 2013, and when I say mostly, I mean the entire story, lore, environments, missions, etc., tracking to release in September 2013. However, when lead writer Joe Staten showed a supercut to upper management, practically everything went on the cutting board. Led by Jason Jones, the Bungie bigwigs thought that the game was too linear and campy. They thought that the planets should be akin to hubs, and that the player should be able to choose where they go at any given point. So Joe, we know you wrote the Halo trilogy that's beloved by millions, but yeah, your story is gonzo. Missions kaput. Places like the Hive Dreadnought, Lighthouse on Mercury, and the EDZ, yep, you guessed it. Well, we'll add one of those back in a DLC later. All of this last-minute cutting led to Staten leaving the company. Instead, the story was completely rebuilt, sans lead writer, in less than a year leading up to its launch. And boy, was that apparent. Okay, back to the game's release. Fans and critics alike were not impressed with the new story direction. From lines like these,
"That wizard came from the moon."
Who are you?
Why have you been watching us?
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
to the characters from the trailers having completely redesigned roles. Everyone could tell that the game was way different than what had been pitched, and it all culminated with our Guardian fighting the final boss in the heart of the Black Garden, a giant floating turd. Yes, I know later lore will retcon this and make it actually interesting, but that's not what we're talking about here. With little explanation of what it was or why we needed to burn said turd, people were not happy.
So, Think you can kill a turd?
The story wasn't the only problem, though. The level progression was strange and required one to do the raid to get to max level, except you needed to be near max level to even attempt the raid. Even then, actually reaching max level was damn near impossible, leading to the now famous moniker Forever 29, as people would stay at level 29 forever. Yeah, that probably didn't need explaining. Not only that, but the campaign missions were kind of dull, even taken out of context of the narrative. Most of them boiled down to go here, kill enemies, whip out your ghost, defend ghost, and you're done. All the while, Peter Dinklage was spouting boring exposition at you, and the topping on the cake was that to really understand what was going on, you had to look at the game's grimoire cards. Well, great, some games do that, like Mass Effect, and it works great to build the universe. So where do I find these? Are they in the menu? Do I need to go somewhere? No, stupid, they're not in the game. You have to go to Bungie's website to read them. Stupid. So yeah, all in all, the release was not too great for the first game. There were two silver linings, though, that, in my humble opinion, saved the game. Silver lining 1, the gunplay. Holy shit, was it good. Basically better than any FPS that came before it, better than Halo, better than Call of Duty, and I will die on that hill. But I'll get into the details of the gunplay later on in the series. Silver linings playbook number 2, the first Destiny raid, the Vault of Glass. Players didn't know what to make of it at first. Unlike the rest of the game, there were no hints, no mission objectives. You were just feeling around in the dark as the Vex tried to kill you. The vault was mysterious and foreboding, but above all, it was beautiful, and it gave away some of the most iconic weapons in Destiny's history, the Fatebringer, the Vex Mythoclast, and more. This raid captured the imaginations of the player base. Even the ones who didn't actually play the raid could watch it on Twitch or on YouTube. And it propped up a game that had very little else to offer at the moment. Bungie made small improvements in this over the course of the year with The Dark Below and The House of Wolves, but those were just variations on a theme, and they didn't really fix the underlying issues with the game. Each of the two offered a new take on the Forever 29 problem, but neither was particularly competent. And the fact that they only lasted until the next expansion before being completely overhauled says more than I ever could. The Dark Below saw the second raid of the series, and it was not nearly as good as the Vault of Glass. The rewards outside the Black Hammer Sniper weren't anything to write home about, and it was shorter and frankly not as interesting in every way compared to its predecessor. House of Wolves didn't add a raid at all, but instead a different activity called Prison of Elders, which was the new endgame mode. Actually, it almost was a raid if you took everything out of a raid that makes it interesting, i.e. cool, massive environments, a sense of wonder, having to find your way through labyrinthian corridors and obscure puzzles. The prison replaced all that with 5 rooms where you'd have a certain set encounters and objectives that would rotate weekly, with multiple difficulties. It was fun in its own right, and it's understandable that Bungie can't develop a huge, amazing raid every few months. However, its hardest difficulty, where you fight Skolas and get the actual good loot, was unforgivably difficult. It was a ridiculous grind for a single encounter, and it wasn't difficult in an interesting way, just that everything doled out so much damage that it was damn near impossible not to die. Can you tell how bitter I am about it? Most of the fixes came in the following year, in the expansion The Taken King. This expansion is what truly saved the Destiny franchise, the first time. It bolstered flagging player numbers, it brought an actual narrative to the gameplay, it brought more weapons and ways to earn them, friggin' space swords, secrets hidden in new activities, it brought new, old destination, the Dreadnought that they cut from the original game, and a new terrifying enemy faction, the Taken, which were a zombified, spacey amalgamation of the 4 enemy races, with crazy new abilities, and one that would shoot you off the side of a building if you got too close, and it was awesome to make your friends do so whenever they were first starting out in the game. It brought Oryx in, who had been teased since the old missions from the original campaign a year before. It brought an amazing new raid, new strikes, and did I mention Oryx? He was a little pissed because you kinda sorta murdered his kid last year. It's hard to stress how much better this game was made by putting a face on the villain and giving him backstory, showing him killing off Earth's most powerful and only ally in a sick-ass opening, and taking control of the system over the course of the campaign. And this time, it all culminated with us actually killing him. Well, sorta, with an ellipsis. See, to kill a hive god, truly kill them, you have to actually go into their throne world and kill them there, which is where the raid came in. So in this expansion, the campaign story led directly into the raid itself. Which seems like an obvious idea now, but it was super awesome at the time. It didn't fix everything, but looking between pre and post Taken King, the game had completely changed for the better. But the best part, y'all? There were so many new ways to fuck with your friends. From the dick wall in the raid,
Long way around. Yep. Oh, that's the quick way to the other side. Oh my god.
to the phalanx in the campaign, many Guardian Downs echoed throughout time and space. My personal favorite was telling my friends that there was a secret room in the big taken orb above the War Priest, and watch them jump up and fall to their death. The following year brought a second major expansion, Rise of Iron, which, while not as good as the expansion before it, brought a lot to the table and added a bunch more to the game. A new snowy social hub, complete with a climbable mountain that some people hilariously never summited. Another newish enemy in the Sivified Fallen with their annoying red death balls, and the most terrifying, unsettling campaign ending in the game's history. Most of the story was kinda meh, except this ending where you fight these monstrosities that were once the Iron Lords, the dudes and the dudettes that you thought had all died. Their reanimated corpses chased you around a room with giant-ass weapons, and it's fucking freaky. We also got a new raid, my personal favorite in the original game. While it wasn't as long as Oryx's raid or as well received as the Vault of Glass, it provided a lot of what Bungie called hero moments. In other words, players were less locked into single roles and could swap on the fly, allowing for less than a full fire team to complete an encounter. This meant that if a couple of your people died, you and the rest of the fire team could come in clutch and provide a victory for the team. It was a lot of fun, even if it did have a hilarious frame rate problem at the Siege engine. It provided a really cool exotic quest, which... Okay, let me take some time to break this down for you, because this whole story is pretty insane. Thanks to jmpherso, I don't know how to pronounce that, for putting this into text. Check out their post for more details because I'm editing this down a lot for brevity. So basically, before the expansion dropped, Guardians started getting these Space AIDS clouds around their heads of different colors. They were directed to a website called the Owl Sector, where you got little lore tidbits about Siva, this crazy nanomachine swarm. But then, after the expansion released and the raid was completed for the first time, the website changed slightly. All of a sudden, there was this new link that spit out a bunch of garbled information and keys. The community then got together and realized that each person would get one of a certain number of different keys and garbled info. So they then realized that they had to crowdsource all of this to get a solution. Finally, after trial and error and a crazy amount of coding, they realized that the information fit together like a jigsaw and formed a JPEG image. An image which correlated to a room in the raid. A room which had these strange platforms which now had numbers assigned to them, and a big-ass 3D diamond in the middle. Strange. What does that do, though? Well, if you go into the raid and shoot at the monitors found throughout, you will later get to a room that has 2 more monitors. From there, 2 of your fire teams stay, and the rest forge ahead to the room with the diamond. Turns out that shooting these 2 monitors spits out 2 numbers in binary, which correlates to a platform. If a player stands on said platform, the monitors spit out 2 more numbers, and again, and after you get 4 players standing on these special platforms, the giant diamond in the middle opens up, and you get a new exotic, A sick-ass weapon that makes nanomachine clouds around your enemies' frickin' heads when you shoot them frickin' long enough, and they swarm around other enemies when they die, creating yet more nanomachines. Ah, awesome. Anyways, all that being said, it was a decent expansion. But the problem with Destiny 1, both Taken King and Rise of Iron, is that it left a year of zero content being added. So, in Rise of Iron, during the spring, a little mini-event was given to soften the pain of the content drought. It was called the Age of Triumphs, which brought back all the old raids and their weapons and made them all relevant again. See, one thing I didn't mention was that each time Destiny launched a new expansion, it increased the maximum power level a Guardian could reach, and all of the new content could help you get to the maximum level. However, the old stuff, the old raids in particular, would only get you to the old maximum, so it effectively made the old raids obsolete. So, when the Taken King launched, not many people played the Vault of Glass anymore, except just for funsies. And when Rise of Iron dropped, they said fuck you to Oryx and moved on. But we looked back with longing eyes. Why can we not get max level stuff from the old raids? We asked, in our naivete. Well, Bungie finally listened. They finally learned their lesson for good. Suddenly, there was a wealth of new content. Well, actually new old content. Content that used to be new but then got old and was now new again. Yeah. Either way, Destiny 1 was at its peak, and it had never been better. What could possibly go wrong? He asked, knowing exactly what would go wrong. Fast forward to September 2017. Destiny 2 is launched. People were hyped.
Yeah! Really, guys?
Mostly because of great trailers that included lines like this.
But most importantly, do it for the puppies!
And this.
Today we know our enemy. His name is
Gary or Gil. Glenn? Is it? I don't know. It's something with a G.
Go.
And for good reasons too. If the team had made D1 so much better from everything they had learned, how good was this new game going to be with a better engine and better graphics? Well, it took a bit longer this time for the cracks to begin to show. In the first couple of weeks following D2's launch, most of the reviews were pretty positive. The story was much more fleshed out than the original game. It had an actual plot, an enemy with motivations, clear story beats, etc. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't going to win awards for its narrative or challenge The Last of Us, but it was a serviceable story for this type of game. The gunplay was excellent as always, exactly what people have come to expect of Bungie's games, and the lore was actually in the game now. And we got tanks! Holy crap, this game is awesome!
It up
What's that?
in the end game.
Oh, right, yeah. It all started to fall apart in the end game. Players soon realized that Bungie, in an effort to make the game more accessible to casual players, had alienated the game's core audience. Skill trees were basically non-existent, with only a couple real choices to make. Guns no longer had random rolls, i.e. the perks on the weapons were the same every single time, so once you got a weapon there was no more reason to keep chasing the dragon, I mean weapon. Exotics felt extremely weak, and it was not even worth equipping them. Abilities and supers charge much slower than they did in the original game. You could no longer equip a shotgun or a sniper or any type of special weapon except in your heavy weapon slot. See, in Destiny you can hold 3 weapons at a time. In D1 there was a primary, special, and heavy weapon slot. Primary was for things like hand cannons, pulse rifles, and auto rifles. Special was for shotguns, snipers, and fusion rifles. And heavy was for rocket launchers, heavy machine guns, and space swords. So now, in D1, you could only have 2 primaries and choose between a sniper or a rocket launcher. You couldn't have both. It was just boring and ruined the whole idea of the game, that you are this super powerful space magical being with crazy weapons. The raid, while decent, was mostly just puzzle solving and had only one real boss. These were just the main issues, but there were many more. Many of them, strangely, had been issues in the first game that had been fixed later on. So to many Destiny fans, it seemed like Bungie had taken 1 step forward with D1 and 2 steps back with D2. It was a frustrating time to be a fan. Not only that, but the first DLC, Curse of Osiris, came out later in the year and had already been mostly developed, so it basically didn't address any of the issues that the players had with the game. Its story was far worse than the original campaign and ended with a final boss fight that was really just a giant QuickTime event. Not only that, but the Infinite Forest, which was Bungie's take on a procedurally generated map system for the planet Mercury, had piqued a lot of Guardians' interest. Turns out, it was really just a pretty hallway to get from one timeline to another, with basically no new interesting game mechanics. Oh, and the 2 strikes they added? Well, they were just reused story missions. Needless to say, fans were pissed. Next came Warmind, and Warmind was better. It was better. Bungie fixed a lot of the issues with exotics not feeling exotic. They brought back the old trick from the Taken King of planting little secrets all over the new area on Mars, which led to getting a couple of new exotics. And they even added the new game mode, Escalation Protocol. It was actually pretty nifty, except that it was really hard and it required at least 5 to 6 people all of the right light level to show up randomly in the area to actually have a chance of beating it. There was no matchmaking and you couldn't take a fire team larger than 3 onto the planet. But other than that, it was pretty good. The ending of the story was, again, anticlimactic, but overall it was better than the previous entry. So David, you might be saying, you're talking a lot of shit about this game. It kinda sounds like you actually hate it. Well, random internet stranger, at this point in time, you wouldn't have been completely wrong. I had given up after Curse of Osiris and only played Warmind retroactively after getting back into Forsaken. The game at the time was just not in a great state. That summer was when things first began to turn around. It started on an unassuming day. I was at school when I saw a Reddit post saying that someone had found a portal on Io after completing a public event. It took them to this unique area that almost kind of looked like a raid, and it had some crazy jumping puzzles and set a timer of 20 minutes. Also, it had some killer music. But other than that, not much was known about this thing. This lit the fires of curiosity in Destiny fans, myself included. Like I said, I left Destiny after Curse of Osiris, but was so intrigued by this discovery that I had to get in. What the community found was one of the most iconic, original, and breathtakingly beautiful missions in Destiny's history, and it all ended with the Whisper of the Worm, an exotic version of a sniper from Destiny 1 that could have infinite ammo as long as you kept getting headshots. It was ridiculously powerful. No statements or hints from Bungie were ever given about this. All of it was discovered and fleshed out by the community. And that is just the coolest shit ever. Kind of similar to the Rise of Iron and its Outbreak Prime quest. And just like that, Bungie had people excited about Destiny again. All they needed to do was follow it up with a decent expansion. And holy shit, boys and girls, they did it! Forsaken released that September. Among the things it added or fixed were moved specials back to the energy slot, some actually in kinetic, added back random rolls to guns, added 9 new supers, a gorgeous raid with a bunch of bosses, yes, better storyline than anything in the game's history, 2 new patrol areas including the beautiful Dreaming City, an awesome in-game campaign that led to the raid, a 3-man raid, aka a dungeon, that was one of the most tragically beautiful things in Destiny, another new game mode, the Blind Well, many more secrets to find, and in-game lore. You know I love that shit. And probably more that I'm forgetting. As I like to say, sue me. Please don't though, I'm poor. Patreon.com/meromorphic. The expansion had single-handedly fixed 90% of the problems that the fanbase had with the game. It was a great time to play it. Bungie followed it up with their new seasonal model of the game, where rather than releasing huge new DLCs twice per year, they would release 4 seasons per year, which were smaller in scope, but both cheaper and still offering a decent amount of gameplay, including new raids for the first year. These seasons produced some of the most fondly remembered content of the game. including but not limited to the Scourge of the Past raid, the Niobe Labs debacle, the Reckoning, the Menagerie, and many, many more. Suddenly, rather than wading through content droughts, which was a huge problem for Destiny 1, and even in D2 to a lesser degree, players constantly had more things to do in the game. Were there still issues? Yes, of course. Just go on Bungie forums or on R Destiny the Game, on the Wayback Machine, or hell, even today, and you'll see plenty. However, many of these issues came from fans who truly loved the game and just wanted to see it grow in a positive direction. If you've asked any of them what they thought about the game at the time of Forsaken versus the Destiny 2 launch, you would have heard very positive things overall. Since then, we have gotten 2 more expansions. First, in 2019, was Shadowkeep. It was the first expansion since Bungie left games giant Activision to trek out on their own. It was smaller than Forsaken and overall less well received, but it did make the base game and the first few expansions free to play, as well as introducing a great new raid set in the Black Garden. Remember that from like 10 minutes ago? We also got a continuation of the larger overall narrative central to the Destiny universe, i.e. what the hell was the darkness and why did it fly around in these weird pyramid ships? Was the darkness Egyptian? Did it have an obsession with acute angles? Did it really just like Doritos? All those questions and more weren't answered, but we did get to go inside the ship and confront the darkness. Oh, and Bungie member buried the shit out of the old Destiny bosses. Member Crota? Ooh, member Carl? That year received a few more seasons, again not changing much from the 2018 Forsaken seasonal model formula, but iterating on it and adding more of the similar style content. It received a mostly lukewarm reception with a few high points spattered about. Personally, I had left Destiny for about a year up until the Season of the Worthy back in March of 2020, when I got back in for outside circumstances that led to my old D1 fire team to reforming. Worthy wasn't much to write home about, but it did provide the brrrt machine, heir apparent, and Arrivals was awesome in every way. New activity, new dungeon, ways to focus on the exact loot you wanted to get. It was pretty great. Finally, the last 2 seasons both ended with an in-world environmental events for the entire Destiny community to witness. First, at the end of the Season of the Worthy, we got the Almighty. If you don't know the Vanilla 2 story, it's just a big-ass ship. Anyways, its debris crashed into the mountains behind the tower, after the entire season had been spent trying to prevent the whole thing from impacting and destroying the Earth. Then, at the end of the Season of Arrivals, we got the darkness invading the solar system and wholesale swallowing up planets, activities, NPCs, and somehow the capability of some weapons from being infused to higher light levels. What the hell? Now we are at Beyond Light. Overall, a great expansion that adds a new ice world in Europa. Our Guardians finally admit that they are at least slightly goth and take on spooky new ice powers. So satisfying to freeze enemies and shatter them like you're on the frickin' Terminator. The campaign is decent, at least among the best of the series, if not quite as good as Forsaken. But the post-campaign campaign is what really shines. We finally get a character-driven storyline in which we learn more about the Exo-Stranger. Remember her from the first game? Well, she's actually this chick named Elsie, and she's the sister of this other chick from Mars named Anna, and she's from a different, more emo timeline. So we get to watch how that all unfolds as her sister begins to find out.
I'm feeling a little ashamed of being a Bray right now.
Welcome to my world.
All jokes aside, these in-game moments are among the most powerful the series has ever offered. We also got new activities, including the platform-heavy Exo challenges and the Empire hunts, where you track down and murder up the lieutenants of the main boss just a bit, with variable levels of difficulty and an awesome exotic reward at the end. Now, is this expansion perfect? Of course fucking not. Have you been paying attention? Bungie removed a ton of content because this game was a needy girlfriend slowly taking over every aspect of, every byte of your hard drive, and it was nearly impossible to quality test it as it grew ever larger. But there's also the less defendable stuff, like many of the weapons being sunset, only to be replaced by a smaller number of weapons, and some of the sunset weapons are brought back exactly the same, so you just have to grind them for a second time. Not to mention there were only 2 new strikes after they removed like 7 of them. But The raid! Holy crap, the raid, you guys. I don't want to spoil the absolute beauty of this raid, but it might be my new favorite. Above Last Wish, above the Vault of Glass even, above the Wrath of the Machine. It's just... And the music and the ambiance are just... So that's where we stand today. Now, I've tried to be balanced with my criticism, but you thought I was done? Psych, fucko. We also got another destination, the Cosmodrome. That's right, that Cosmodrome from D1, helmed by the derpiest of Guardians, the most Eli Manning-faced motherfucker in the series, Shaw Han. Plus, Bungie brought back the dungeons from the last season, and the Vault of Freaking Glass is planned to come back sometime in the first half of 2021. Are you done? Why am I talking to myself? Anyways, I've tried to be balanced here with my criticisms, giving as many critiques as I did get down on my knees and suck on Bungie. But at the end of the day, this is just a game that I love. It's a game that offers a whole lot, both to veterans and to new players. And does that make me biased? Well, yes. It does. And do I care? No. No, I do not. I recorded this whole conclusion with the green screen and forgot to answer the question that was the whole purpose of this video. So after this whole metric crap ton of Destiny history that you've now sat through, thank you for that by the way, can we answer the question of why you should be playing Destiny? Well, absolutely. See, whether the game has been in a good or bad state for a time, or somewhere in between, the steps forward have always been there. Destiny is always evolving. It has been on a constant march, slowly getting better and better, even accounting for its stumbles. So what that means is, whether you pick up a copy today or 6 months from now, the game will likely be in the best state that it's ever been. Either that or it's right around the corner. Of course, that involves some speculation and is purely my opinion, but I think that I have provided ample evidence in this monstrosity of a video to prove that here. You're totally allowed to disagree with me, and if Reddit finds this video, I'm sure they'll tell me exactly how they do. But yeah, there's so much more here that I wanted to go in depth with in this video. Like how Destiny uses dynamic musical transitions to tell a story, or how good that music is itself. Or how this game, above all others, gets the idea of exotic gear correct, in that it should be truly unique and powerful. Or how, no matter what state the game has been in, the art design has always been on point. But, while I originally intended on this just being one video, my script is already bordering on 7 pages, so let's call this the end of the beginning of a new series, a new journey. And it's a journey that I'm happy to go on with you Guardians.